Hey everyone, Skoggle here, doing a game. It's a little bit different. It's going to be Nasus against Teemo, and then he's going to get some help from his team and make a pretty good comeback. So this is kind of what you do when you get counterpicked. You go out to your lane, it's not working. Try to ask for a lane swap as soon as this pick happens. But if that you don't get that, which is very likely in solo queue, what can you do from there? You can maybe swap after you showed without feeding, preferably, what you can and can't do. So if you're not able to farm and you're just going to have a very bad, terrible laning time of it, and they're going to try to lock you down and freeze the lane to make it just this one-sided lane where they one top and you're going to be useless, to see if you can't get your team to do something agreeable. So what you're going to have to do in the early phase as Teemo is just harass him every single time he goes for a last hit. Every time. He's trying to Q farm to get it up so he can become the late game split pushing monster that he can become. That's why he has teleport and ghost. Just to split push to be what Nasus can do. So anyhow, that being said, he's going to try to get as much CS as he can, which is going to be very difficult because Teemo has the range advantage. He can blind him, making it hard to last hit. He can speed up. He just really has a good kit to deal with Nasus. Nasus is going to have a really hard time. If you're Nasus here, honestly, he's pushing like this, don't even go out there. Just let all the CS go and let it come to your tower. That really would have been probably the best thing he could have done. Here, it's going to take him, because he went out, now he's basing when it's at the tower instead of being there, and then he's not going to get back in time, and he just loses not just a creep wave to the tower, but that was a big creep wave to the tower by the time he takes back up. So Doran's Blade obtained, but it's a little bit late for him. To not get yourself in this situation where you're getting starved out, let Teemo kind of push out. When you're out of potions, you're out of potions. You can't go far away from your tower. Teemo's just going to be too big. It might be all you can handle to take CS. Or to take experience and not give that up if your team won't swap you lanes. So, anyhow, it gets you through that beginning. He's didn't use this teleport to get back because it wouldn't have gotten him back with anything that significant. Xin Zhao got the experience, and you can just see that at this point Teemo can just do too much damage to him for trying to come out, so he can't return enough to make this worth it, and now he has to use a summoner spell just to get out of there. And because it hit to the tower, it's pushing against him, and so Teemo can just freeze the lane back on his side. And all Nasus can do is walk up and take too much harass in exchange for farming. So here's where the fix happens. This is the only reason I picked this lane, because normally in matchups this would have just been Teemo's win, and I would have showed you how to starve Nasus out of anything other than, because he freezes, Nasus just decides to not go back up there. So no one's on his team's losing that much very fast. There's no threat to the tower being taken, and Nasus figure out a way to get Nasus back in this game. They figure out a way to keep Xin Zhao and Akali in the game by just communication, teamwork, and they run a lane swap because Nasus can basically still be okay with the mid tower behind him. They don't do it for a little bit. It's kind of interesting what happens. He has teleport, so at any point he can run back. He can teleport up and save his tower. So as long as Nasus or Teemo's freezing, the only thing he could do is stand in the lane and not farm. So it's not actually going to do him any good. So he doesn't do that because it's not going to do him any good. And I think this is about the point where he's probably talked Akali into it, because he's just like, this lane's not going to work. Akali technically can be a top laner or a mid laner, so Nasus is just going to kind of head on out to mid lane, and he wants those wraiths to respawn. And the only thing that sucks for Akali is Akali finally gets to 6, but Akali can destroy Teemo just as easily as Akali can destroy TF. So Nasus just isn't going to go back up there. Sometimes you can just ignore your team if they're going to keep insisting you do something like that and just go do what you want to do. I mean, I don't know if they really agree on this switch or if Nasus just kind of does it. He's going to be better off doing this and getting nothing accomplished than he is going or getting 2 in this lane and getting some levels than he is going to go back and getting starved and killed over and over and feeding top and then being reported for feeding or whatever people do about that. So he's pretty much better off doing what he's doing. It sounds crazy, but if your team won't help you, and then they're mad that you're taking their farm or their CS or whatever or their experience, there's nothing you could have done in your lane. You'd have just been starved out forever. So what you're doing is, in my opinion, is okay. So here, Collie's just gonna go kill Twisted Fate and then just go top. And I believe Nasus just can go shop, get himself a little bit more because Twisted Fate's doing okay. He's 1,500. You can see Teemo's 2,400. So he's significantly behind on top of being counterpicked. Collie just solo kills Twisted Fate. As soon as he has 3 charges, he can just force the fight, throw down a shroud so that TF can't do too much return damage and just go for the kill. And Collie probably just is unhappy because he picked that to go for that fight particularly. But he's going to be able to just go for Teemo. And after the kill, Akali's actually ahead of Teemo. So Teemo, after starving out Nasus, doesn't get Nasus. Teemo wins his lane, starves out Nasus, gets Akali. And that puts Nasus back onto farming, and you can see him throw down the Wither, use all his stuff, and with a Xin Xiao gank, and that far behind, just the Wither alone is enough for Xin Xiao to finish off TF. I don't know if that would have worked as well against Teemo, just because of Teemo's kit, but for TF, that was enough. So, at this point, that puts Nasus back into this game a little bit. TF's a little bit farther behind as they got him again. And so, Nasus is going to be okay now. Like, this is, you hemorrhaged, you stopped the bleeding, and before it got too out of control, Nasus was able to keep himself alive and in this game a little bit. Collie's doing quite well, and bottom lane's okay. So basically they're okay, and this could have been a really nasty situation when Teemo was 7 and Nasus was 4. Very much potential for that to get crazy out of control. And even behind TF like he is, yeah, TF is the roaming threat, but Nasus will be he'll be okay to at least farm up and keep getting experience and keep getting gold. He just needs to let his team, like right there, every time you play TF, you just need to let your team know he's broken vision, he's gone, he's back in vision. If you're playing against TF, especially after getting the lane swap, just try to help out and let your team know what's going on. And there, he kind of was a little bit late going in, but they still were able to get the kill. And he's going to make sure that Hecarim can't follow up on his Xin Xiao and take the kill away, so... Or return the kill and trade kills. Wither's just such a good spell, especially against Hecarim. Hecarim is going to have a hard time ganking Nasus at any point because he's so based on his movement speed to do that extra damage and do things, get in position. So that's going to be very good for Hecarim, or for Nasus against Hecarim. So at this point, he's kind of evened out into the game. He's still not by any means ahead or the reason they're winning, but he's got himself back to a playable state, and Akali is having herself a great game, even with the lane swap, so you can almost feel bad for the Teemo other than he's a Teemo. But Teemo did a great job of counter-picking, a great job of going up there and thinking it was going to be great. So TF tries to make a play on an extremely low life Akali, but that didn't work out. So... if anyone makes a lane switch with you like that and helps you when you're having a bad game, make sure you do tell them things, because that was quite the relief, because that would have been continued to have just stayed a bad game for this Nasus under other circumstances. But instead, this Nasus is gonna end up being okay. So Max's Q first, got a second point in Wither before EE's last for this Nasus. I remember looking at the profile. This Nasus plays Nasus a lot. I think had a winning percentage, a pretty decent win percentage on Nasus. So this is a fairly experienced Nasus player. If you're looking for how people do play Nasus. Then of course you take your ultimate, because that's what makes Nasus into God mode when he gets big, and then it adds that area of effect damage around him. Pretty sure Renekton's is very similar, other than Renekton has Fury and builds Fury with it. So here he's actually just stayed in lane and passed Twisted Fate, which he was way behind Twisted Fate for a while. Good dodge by Twisted Fate there. I think there's going to be another team fight. Then they take mid tower. So after you max your Q, because that's what makes you the threat to split push and take tower super fast, you go for your W next, your Wither, so you have all that CC. Here's a fight where his team's low, but because of who he is and his ultimate, he can kind of just go in and do a lot. Since Xiao gets caught out, but he's able to get that kill onto Janna, and then they pick off Hecarim. And he's able to throw some damage down, but Lux kind of overstays her welcome and gets sniped by Varus. So Varus had flash and escaped, otherwise he probably could have chased that down. Another Q or two would have probably got that. So, but that left Caitlyn alone to push the wave, get the tower. Both bottom towers are down. And let's just go over the gold. Do you remember how bad it was for a while? Now at this point he's at 4,700, over 47, almost 4,800 to well, just barely 4,700 on Teemo, and they're about to get top tower, so he's going to be 4,950. So he's actually ahead by a bit. Anyhow, I hope you learned something. Take care. Good luck.